Now, I want to maybe start this discussion about internet payments from the perspective of the current business models on the internet. Um, what is broken about the monetization methods used in the internet today? Like, why do we need peer-to-peer payments on Lightning? Why can't we just, you know, use the existing business models that are common on the internet today?
Well, I think everyone kind of knows now that the internet is not perfect, and a lot of things, how the online world works, are kind of broken. And I think most people are aware nowadays that the main model that is used online, which is that the service is free and you're basically the product, it's not a very ethical way of running a business, because Google is not only specializing on how to improve their search results, they are also specializing in how to gather as much data from their users as they can. So every single business is into multiple businesses at once, and everyone is just spied upon, and user data is collected as much as possible and sold to the highest bidder. And I think that's in part why the internet is so broken, and everyone does it. I mean, the big five FAANG companies, so it doesn't matter if it's Facebook or Amazon or Google or Bing or Netflix, or it doesn't matter. You know, everyone is kind of in the business of gathering user data and selling it to the highest bidder. And I think the reason is very simple, that you kind of you were not able to do payments properly. Micropayments never worked, and micropayments have their own kind of problems. But the way that companies were able to truly monetize was to give it away for free, and either kind of make the users addicted to the service or platform or software and charge them later on. So just, like the crack dealer in the park, give the first couple of hits away for free, and then you actually have to sign up. Or like with just having it for free always, and monetizing via advertisements. And of course, the whole industry figured out that the way to actually maximize advertisement gains is by targeted advertisements. Like if you're actually able to know the user better than the user knows himself, then you can actually show ads where people will actually click on it and buy stuff, and buy a lot of stuff. And so this turns out works really well. And the downside is, of course, that you have to spy on all the users all the time, and you have to build up those user profiles. And so just the old school way of going to a corner shop with cash in hand and handing over the cash, and the clerk doesn't even have to know your name or something like that, is kind of gone online. Like every service knows absolutely everything about you, basically. And I hope that we can move away from this world, because I think it's a very dangerous world as well, which I think we see some societal issues playing out right now, and they have been like that's the case for the last couple of years. These things are problematic, and I think most people are waking up currently that these things are problematic.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one company in specific that has been in the spotlight for all these issues is Facebook. So maybe we could use that as an example. If it were possible to kind of like fork Facebook and have the same network effect, have the same user base, all this, and have this mirrored version where it's built on, let's say, Lightning payments or like seamless microtransactions, and there is no need to collect user data to serve ads. Do you think that version with micropayments would be more profitable for Facebook, the company?
That's a good question. I have no
Because
way of answering this.
It does flip the equation a bit, right? Because it all of a sudden says, like, users have to pay to access a service now. So I wonder, does that change like from Facebook's perspective, they want as many people on as possible, have that addressable market be as large as possible. Does it change the way you onboard new users? Because I think that what I'm trying to understand is, like, if we have this new monetization method for the internet, but it cannot, be a business model that's as profitable as the kind of like ad business model they have today. Does it actually have the impact that we hope it will?
So
you know what I mean?
I do. The reason why it took me so long to think about an answer is like if the underlying model switches, I think the world will look very, very differently. And so I don't think that a company as big as Facebook would exist. So, for example, compare the current world of e-commerce and commerce in general with how things were before Amazon existed and before the internet existed and before Amazon was able to, like make every single shop obsolete, basically. And I think the value for value model in particular, micropayments, like, okay, let's get into it. Like there is no way of dancing around those issues anyway. So micropayments do not work. Paywalls do not work. I wrote a very long article about this, and I think the reason why micropayments do not work is because the mental transaction cost is too high. If you have to think about, do I want to pay 2 cents for reading this blog post, this will never work. Like it just doesn't. It just doesn't. And that's why I also mentioned in the beginning, like to my chagrin, paywalls are making a comeback. I think paywalls are insanely stupid. It's a broken model to begin with. And that's why we see absolutely everyone, like no one is using transaction-based payments. Like everyone is using subscription payments, because then you don't have to think about it. You sign up for Spotify or for Netflix or for Amazon Prime or whatever, and you pay it once, and you know kind of the cost, and you're fine with it, and you click it, and then you never have to think about it again. And that's, we also know from the charity world, for example, that's how you maximize like giving. That's how people actually give to charities. They are in a very good mood, they are in a generous mood, and then they think about it, and they want to do this, and they kind of take care about their future decisions, and they set it up once, and then you give, like $50 a month to the charity of your choice, whatever. And so we kind of know this. It's a psychological problem. It's not a technical problem necessarily. It used to be a technical problem. So who knows how the internet would have developed if we would have had micropayments from the get-go. But we hadn't, and that's how the advertisement model and the data collection model came creeping in. I think in the app development, software development world, a lot of people know that this is unethical and not the right way to do things. So there is a movement against this, and it's basically just, okay, pay for the software outright. Like not everything can be free. It's not a good situation to be in, because if this thing is free, we have to spy on you, And so there are people that are creating awesome software, but there's also, they're very outspoken about this, like you will have to pay for it, period. There's no other way that we can do this. And to answer your question, if Facebook could make more or as much money as they do now, there is no way to answer it, because if this transition happens, Facebook will not exist. Facebook would be, a good comparison might be like the postal service. If something like the internet comes along, will the postal service make as much money as it did before? And the answer is obviously, like, the postal service is irrelevant. It doesn't exist anymore. You have a neutral protocol that connects people, and everyone can use it basically free of charge, more or less. I mean, you have to pay your ISP and so on, but that's the transition I see. And so I don't see I hope that no platforms will emerge anymore. I hope that we can stick with protocols. And for, like, email is a great example, and just websites are a great example, where you have direct publishing, you have direct communication, and you don't have a middleman that takes a cut and takes a profit. And that's the revolution that I see. And it is enabled by micropayments, but it won't be paywalls. It won't be, like, paywalls do not work, period. They absolutely do not work. As you said, information wants to be free. And so if someone is able to break the paywall, and one way to break the paywall is by simply paying it. So you pay 20 cents, $2, whatever, then you have the blog post, and you take a screenshot, and then you share it wherever. And then, the information is free. And so I think just looking at the market, like, I know you wanted to use Facebook as an example, but I don't have the numbers from the top of my head. But Facebook makes
That's
money by spying on their users, and they make a lot of money. But just if you take the online advertisement industry, in general. Like that's a very, very large market. And I think that value for value, for example, can take a big bite out of this market. I don't think that, you know, advertisement will go away completely and so on, but I think it is just a different way of doing things. And Adam Curry talks about this all the time. Like the value for value model, it's not like a flip that you switch and then everything works automatically. It's a very different relationship to the content opens up, and also to the producers of the content and the consumers of the content, or like it's a way tighter relationship. And there is this feedback loop of providing value and giving value back. And what I think is also beautiful by cutting out the middleman, by encouraging people to do it in a self-sovereign way, in a way that you cannot be deplatformed, you cannot be censored, your accounts cannot be frozen, your transactions cannot be frozen. I think we will have a more diverse, more lively, more broad ecosystem where you can monetize with a very small audience. And this is currently not true. Currently, it's a numbers game with advertisements and all the rest of it. You need to be quite big to make a living on, I don't know what, YouTube or Spotify or what have you. You really need to rake in the numbers. And I hope with a more direct way of giving, this can change. And I mean, we know that this works, and that's also the example I gave in the article that I wrote about the freedom of value and how I look at the whole value for value movement and streaming money and podcasting 2.0 and those kind of things, is with busking. So we know in every city, in every town, there are street musicians and they perform, and they perform for free. But there is this implicit kind of expectation that people will give, a certain percentage of people will give. It doesn't have to be much. It just has to be enough to keep the music going, so to speak. And that's the way I look at it with podcasting 2.0 and those kind of value for value ideas as well. You know, the content is free, but if you like the show, if you like the person, if you like the content, you kind of know that you have to give back from time to time, or certain people have to give back from time to time, otherwise the music will stop. And we kind of know that this works. Like Wikipedia works on that principle. And I mean, Wikipedia figured out that the way to do this is slap very big banners in the faces of everyone. And I think we will figure out how to properly do this over time. So that's my perspective in general.